Good day, everyone, especially to our professor, Dr. Jacqueline M. Macahis. We are the group 3, and our topic is about poverty and social crisis. Allow me first to introduce to you the presenter of this topic. Presenter number 1, Sarah Jane Salambat. Presenter number 2, Ma'am Tricia Fides Salazar. And presenter number 3, Ma'am Aisa D. Kawit. Poverty and social crisis are divided into 6 subtopics. First, the nature of poverty. Second, some causes of poverty in the Philippines. Third, theories of poverty. Fourth, existence of poverty effects. Then, 4 strategies to reduce poverty. And lastly, elementary education. Life is better in trash. Poverty and social crisis are intertwined issues that affect communities worldwide, transcending borders, culture, and economies. Poverty is a multifaceted issue characterized by a lack of resources and opportunities to meet basic human needs such as food, shelter, health care, and education. This means that there is a scarcity of resources and opportunities to fulfill human needs. In the context of the Philippines, poverty is a significant challenge affecting a large segment of the population. So we all know that Philippines is a developing country with high poverty rate. Addressing poverty is essential for achieving sustainable development, reducing inequality, and promoting social justice. It is a fundamental human rights issue that requires collective efforts from governments, organizations, and individuals. Nature of poverty. According to the Philippine Statistic Authority, the poverty incidence among Filipinos stood at 16.6% in 2018, equivalent to around 17.6 million people living below the poverty line. The poverty rate varies across regions, with rural areas generally experiencing higher levels of poverty compared to urban areas. There are 3 types of poverty. First is absolute poverty. Absolute poverty refers to the deprivation of basic human needs, which commonly includes food, water, sanitation, clothing, shelter, health care, and education. Absolute poverty is the absence of enough resources, such as money, to secure basic life necessities. It depends not only on income but also on access to services. United Nations further defines absolute poverty as the absence of any two of the following 7 basic needs: food, safe drinking water, sanitation facilities, health, shelter, education, and access to services. Second is relative poverty. Relative poverty views poverty as socially defined and dependent on social context. Hence, relative poverty is a measure of income inequality. The term relative poverty can also be used in a different sense to mean moderate poverty. For example, a standard of living or level of income that is high enough to satisfy basic needs but still significantly lower than that of the majority of the population under consideration. Here's an example to illustrate a relative poverty. Let's consider a hypothetical scenario in country called A. The median income in A is $1,000 per month. The government defines the relative poverty line as 50% of the median income, which would be $500 per month. Now, let's say there is a family in A with a monthly income of $400. In terms of relative poverty, this family would be considered below the poverty line because their income is below 50% of the median income. Despite having an income that may be sufficient to meet basic needs in some contexts, this family would be classified as experiencing relative poverty in the context of A because their income falls below the defined threshold relative to the average income in the country. Next is voluntary poverty. Among some individuals, poverty is considered a necessary condition which must be embraced to reach certain spiritual, moral, or intellectual states. Poverty is often understood to be an essential element of renunciation in religions such as Buddhism. In the Philippines, there are individuals and communities who choose to embrace voluntary poverty as the way of life. One example is the Gawad Kalinga movement, which aims to address poverty and build sustainable communities by providing housing, livelihood opportunities, and education to those in need. GK or Gawad Kalinga encourages volunteers to live in Gawad Kalinga communities where they commit to a simple and frugal lifestyle. They may live in modest homes, practice communal living, and engage in community activities and initiatives. By choosing voluntary poverty, they prioritize the well-being of the community and work towards uplifting the lives of the less fortunate. Causes of poverty in the Philippines. First, lack of access to education. Second, unemployment and underemployment. Third, income inequality. Fourth, vulnerability to natural disaster. And number five, lack of access to health care. Lack of access to education. While significant progress has been made in improving access to education in the Philippines, disparities persist, particularly in rural and marginalized communities. The dropout rate remains a concern, affecting the quality of education and limiting opportunities for socio-economic advancement. Impact of education on poverty reduction. Education plays a crucial role in breaking the cycle of poverty by equipping individuals with knowledge, skills, and opportunities for better employment prospects. Unemployment and underemployment. Unemployment rates in the Philippines was reported at 5.3% in 2020, with fluctuation influenced by economic conditions, labor market, and external factors. Underemployment, where individuals work less than full-time or are engaged in low productivity jobs, remains a pervasive issue contributing to income insecurity and poverty. Challenges of underemployment. Underemployment poses challenges in terms of income stability, job security, and career advancement. Income inequality. Gini coefficient in the Philippines is a measure of income inequality, with higher values indicating greater inequality. The Gini coefficient was recorded at 0.399 in 2018, reflecting a moderate level of income inequalities. Disparities in income distribution can exacerbate poverty and hinder social mobility, perpetuating economic disparities. Impact of income inequality to poverty. Income inequality can limit opportunities for social mobility, access to essential services, and participation in economic activities. Vulnerability to natural disasters. The Philippines is prone to a range of natural hazards, including typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods, due to its geographical location and topography. The frequency and intensity of natural disasters pose significant risk to livelihoods, infrastructure, and community well-being. Impact of disasters on poverty. Natural disasters can have devastating consequences on poverty levels, leading to a loss of lives, displacement of population, destruction on homes and livelihoods, and disruption of economic activities. Lack of access to health care. The healthcare system in the Philippines comprises a mix of public and private providers, with variation in access, quality, and affordability across regions. Challenges such as inadequate healthcare facilities, healthcare workforce shortages, and limited financial protection can hinder access to essential healthcare services. Health outcomes and poverty correlation. Poor health outcomes, including high infant mortality rates, prevalence of infectious diseases, and limited access to healthcare services, are closely linked to poverty.
A pleasant day to all of us, especially to our professor, Ma'am Jacqueline Macahis. By the way, I am Trisha Fides Al Salazar, and today I will be discussing theories of poverty. So we have four theories of poverty, and these are classical theory, neoclassical theory, Keynesian or neoliberal theory, and Marxian or radical theory. So first, let us discuss classical theory. So what is classical theory? When we say classical theory, classical economic traditions contend that individuals are ultimately responsible for poverty, thereby providing a foundation for laissez-faire policies. Or in short, Classical theory suggests that poverty is mainly caused by individual factors like lack of education or motivation, and by market dynamics such as supply and demand. For example, Jack is a high school dropout who struggles to find a job. According to the classical theory rather, Jack's poverty can be explained by his individual choices such as dropping out of school and not pursuing further education or training. Additionally, market dynamics play an essential role as Jack competes for low-skilled jobs with others in similar situations, leading to low wages and limited opportunities for advancement. So let us now proceed to neoclassical theory. Neoclassical theory builds on classical ideas, focusing on how people make choices in the market based on their needs and what's available. For example, Sarah is a recent college graduate with a degree in computer science. She applies for several entry-level positions in the tech industry and eventually lands a job at a software company. According to neoclassical theory, Sarah's success can be attributed to her rational decision to invest in education and acquire valuable skills that are in demand in the job market. Her employment outcome reflects the interplay of her individual choices and the dynamics of supply and demand in the labor market. So let us now proceed to Keynesian or neoliberal theory. Keynesian or neoliberal schools focus on macroeconomic forces and emphasize the role of government in providing economic stabilization and public goods. Poverty is considered largely as involuntary and caused by unemployment. Or Keynesian theory says that the government should step in to fix economic problems like unemployment and poverty by controlling spending and taxes. For example, during an economic recession, unemployment rates rise as businesses struggle to stay afloat and consumer spending declines. In response, the government implements fiscal stimulus measures such as increased spending on infrastructure projects and tax cuts to boost aggregate demands and stimulate economic growth. This scenario reflects Keynesian theory, which advocates for government intervention to stabilize the economy during downturns. So, next is the Marxian or radical theory. Marxian or radical views consider class and group discrimination as central to poverty and assign a key role to the state in its intervention and regulation of markets. Anti-poverty proposals in this view include minimum wages and anti-discrimination laws. Or to explain it clearly, Marxian theory, which is based on Karl Marx's ideas, argues that poverty comes from how society is structured, with the rich exploiting the poor, or poverty is caused by unfair systems and needs big changes to fix it. An example scenario is in a society where wealth and resources are concentrated in the hands of small elite, the majority of the population struggles to make ends meet. Workers in industries like manufacturing or agriculture are paid low wages and have little bargaining power, while corporate profits soar. According to Marxian theory, poverty is a result of systemic exploitation and inequality inherent in capitalist systems, where the bourgeois or capital class profits from the labor of the proletariat or the working class. Radical theorists might advocate for revolutionary change to overthrow capitalist structures and establish a more equitable socio-economic system. So this time, let us now discuss the existence of poverty and its effects. Effects of poverty on health. So, the effect of poverty on health is malnutrition. Poverty can lead to inadequate nutrition for individuals and families struggle to afford nutritious meal. It could also lead to chronic malnutrition, which can impair physical and cognitive development in children and increase the risk of chronic conditions such as obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease in adults. Next is lack of health services and unaffordable medicines. Poverty often restricts access to quality healthcare services, including preventive care, regular checkups, and treatment for illnesses. Without adequate healthcare, individuals may delay seeking medical attention, leading to the leading to complications and higher rates of preventable diseases. Another is unhealthy environment or unsafe living conditions. Low-income individuals often live in substandard housing with inadequate ventilation, sanitation, and exposure to environmental hazards such as lead, mold, and air pollution. These living conditions can contribute to respiratory problems, infectious diseases, and injuries, further compromising health outcomes. Next is poor educational outcomes. Poverty and poor educational outcomes often go hand in hand. Economic disadvantages can limit access to quality education, resources, and support systems, leading to lower academic achievement. Breaking this cycle often requires addressing systemic inequalities and providing equitable opportunities for all students, regardless of their socio-economic background. Poverty effects on society. So many people living in poverty are homeless. When people don't have enough money for a home, they can end up without a place to live. This happens because they can pay rent or mortgage and they might get kicked out of their homes. Sometimes, even it's even if they have some money, they can't find a place they can afford to live. Being homeless makes it hard to stay healthy because there's no clean water, bathrooms, or doctors nearby. It's also dangerous because people living on the streets might get hurt or treated badly. Next is violence and crimes. Poverty can make neighborhoods more dangerous. When people don't have enough money or jobs, they might feel angry or desperate. They can lead them to do bad things like stealing or joining gangs to survive. Also, when people use drugs because they're stressed or sad about being poor, it can make them act violently. Poor areas might not have enough police or places to get help, so crimes can happen more often there. So, lastly, is child labor. Sometimes, when families don't have enough money, kids have to work instead of going to school or playing like other kids. This happens because their families need the extra money to buy food and pay bills. But working when you're a kid can be really hard and dangerous. Kids might get hurt or treated badly by their bosses, and they miss out of learning and growing up healthy. When kids have to work instead of going to school, they can't get the skills they need to have a better life when they grow up.
Good evening to each and everyone, especially to our professor. Dr. Jacqueline Macahis. This is the continuation of the topic of Ma'am Tricia Salazar. I am Isa D. Kawit. My task here is to discuss to you about four strategies to reduce poverty. First one is investing in education. Education is one of the most powerful tools for breaking the cycle of poverty by investing in quality education, especially at the primary and secondary levels. Societies can equip individuals with the skills, knowledge, and opportunities needed to secure better paying jobs and improve their economic prospects. The second one is promoting economic empowerment. Economic empowerment initiatives aim to provide individuals and communities with the resources, training, and support needed to generate sustainable livelihoods and income. These can include measures such as microfinance programs, vocational training, entrepreneurship development, access to credit and financial services, and support for small-scale enterprises. The third one is ensure social protection. Social protection measures play an important role in mitigating the impact of poverty and providing a safety net for vulnerable population. These include policies such as social assistance programs, cash transfers, food aid, healthcare subsidy, and unemployment benefits. The fourth one is addressing inequality and social exclusion. Poverty is often worsened by systematic inequalities and social exclusion based on factors such as gender, ethnicity, disability, and geographic location. Addressing these disparities require comprehensive policies and intervention that promote quality of opportunities, reduce discrimination, and empower marginalized groups. This can include measures such as affirmative action program, land reform initiatives, gender mainstreaming strategies, and community development projects that prioritize the needs of vulnerable population. Elementary education refers. Here's how elementary education can make a significant difference. Breaking the cycle of poverty. Breaking the cycle of poverty by providing children with the foundational knowledge and skills necessary to pursue higher education and better job opportunities in the future. Empowerment. Elementary education plays a crucial role in empowerment by providing individuals with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make informed decisions, participate actively in society, and pursue opportunity, personal and professional growth. Improve health and well-being. By promoting improved health and well-being by fostering health, literacy, access to health care, healthy behaviors, mental health awareness, social and emotional well-being, and educational attainment. Enhance social integration. By promoting inclusive environments, developing skills, cultivating empathy and understanding, encouraging peer relationship, preventing social exclusion, and preparing children for active citizenship. Increase resilience by teaching children these skills early on. Them learn how to adapt to challenges, cope with the setbacks, and bounce back from adversity more effectively as they grow older. Community development. Elementary education plays a crucial role in community development by fostering human capital development, reducing poverty, promoting social cohesion and inclusion, encouraging community engagement and participation, and fostering economic development and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for your listening, and once again, good evening.